Scott, I think right now the main concern on the part of Iran is not the enriched uranium, because they're capable of producing at any level. They have the knowledge, they have everything, They know it's not
Yeah.
something to be bombed. It's not something to be destroyed in Iran.
Yeah.
It's forever in Iran.
Forever. I agree with you. And I've said it before. I was on your show. I've said it. And I'll say it again. I've never backed away from it. Iran can already build a nuclear bomb. They've solved everything. All they need is the decision. But I will point this out. Witkoff misunderstood when Arakchi said we have 450, 460,
yeah,
I don't know.
450, yeah.
Kilograms of uranium hexafluoride enriched to 60% uranium. And Witkoff went, "You're telling us you have the ability to build 10 nuclear weapons." I would have bitch slapped Witkoff right there and said, "That's not what they're saying, you stupid moron." All the Americans were around saying at the end of June that we don't know where it is, that the Iranians could be building a bomb. What Arakchi said was, "We're not building a bomb. We have it all, and we're willing to give it up.
Yeah.
Therefore, there will be no bomb. We have it all. We're willing to give it up. No bomb." There was no threat implied there at all. It was the Iranians saying, "We haven't done anything with it. We haven't enriched it up higher. We haven't turned it into metal. We haven't done anything. It's all here." And if the Iranians can make that statement today to the Russians and say, "Yeah, because if the Iranians come back and say, well, we only got 250 kilograms of it left," people are going, 3 bombs, which I think might be the case. But hopefully that isn't the case. Hopefully Iran can say, "No, we still have it all," because that means that they haven't weaponized, that they haven't taken that step. But they said back in 2024, 2025, a senior Iranian Revolutionary Guard people, we have everything we need, but the core. We have the warhead. We have all the safety stuff that goes along with that. All these missiles they're firing, every single one of them has components that are linked to a nuclear delivery system. I mean, so the Iranians have already tested everything. That's the other beauty of it, is we've given the Iranians all these advanced missiles they're testing right now, all they're firing. This is their nuclear delivery systems, and they work. And the components, for instance, the charges that are used to release the submunitions and all this stuff, it's the same principle that will be used to fire, a nuclear weapon. And it's all being tested. The vibration testing is good. Everything's good. So there's literally nothing to stop the Iranians other than themselves. If they wanted, they could have enriched this stuff up to 92, 94%, 98% if they wanted to, turn it into a metal and make we're talking about basic gun design. So it'd be 12 to 20 kilotons of stuff. You don't have to test it. Everybody's like, we're waiting for the Iranians to test. We never tested it. The first bomb dropped on Japan was a gun design. Never tested. The design that was that was tested at Alamogordo was a plutonium weapon, a compression, implosion weapon. Gun designing, it's the simplest thing in the world. Slug, boom, critical mass, boom. It's not efficient. You're wasting a lot of potential, but 12 to 20 kilotons. 3 of those, Israel no longer exists. And Iran can do that. And the Iranians now know that it isn't going to get shot down. They're testing it right now. It isn't going to get shot down. And it'll hit what it's aimed at. So the Iranians are in the driver's seat. If they want, and this is why I think Russia needs to come in right now and just bring it into this and say, because you don't want to go there. Look, I know the Iranians' pride has been hurt. You've been attacked. You've been stabbed in the back. You've been bombed. You've been betrayed. My God, if I were an Iranian, I'd be screaming, nuke them. I wouldn't be sitting here trying to be Mr. Rational. I'd be saying, no, take Israel off the map. Israel deserves to be taken off the map. I have no sympathy for the state of Israel. There's no place on the earth that deserves to be nuked more than Israel. But that doesn't solve the problems. And Iran doesn't want to go down in history as that nation either. That's not the legacy of what Iran wants. So let's see what the Russians can do. Let's see if the Russians get engaged. That's still no guarantee. But I think Donald Trump is desperate right now. Desperate. I'm anxious to see what he's going to say tonight. I'm anxious to see what kind of, I mean, I love it. I forget which Iranian, was it the president or was it Aragchi that said he's negotiating with himself? It's perfect.
Yeah,
that's what
it was Aragchi, the foreign minister of Iran.
Yeah, it's perfect. He's holding a negotiation with himself. It's a fantasy. The Iranians have been very clear about it. First of all, there are no negotiations, even through intermediaries. The fact that they pick up a phone call from the Pakistanis doesn't mean they're negotiating.
But Scott, the problem is that Donald Trump, he doesn't follow himself during the day. You know, in 1 hour says something, and the other. How can you deal with this?
You can't. You can't. This is why the Russians have to be the mediators. There's no way Americans can sit down with the Iranians. There's no way. How could the Iranians ever trust? And you know, in order for there to be an American that the Iranians could trust, I mean, the Trump administration has to be gone, and a whole new administration comes in. You know, J.D. Vance can't be trusted. There was talk about he was going to be. J.D. Vance can't be trusted. Tulsi Gabbard can't be trusted. None of them can be trusted. There's nobody in Washington, D.C. right now that can be trusted to be the mediator. But there is a modicum of trust between Russia and the United States. There's a relationship with Kirill Dmitriev and Steve Witkoff that you know, could possibly be exploited. And so if the Russians could sit down and mediate this thing, I think you could get a deal very quickly. I don't think Israel has too many cards left to hold. I think Israel has just been shown to be a nation state that's being taken apart piece by piece by piece by piece. I don't know what the battle damage assessment is from last night. I do know that the Israeli contention that the Iranians were down to their last 27 launchers was disproved dramatically. You know, so, you know, we'll see. But this is so frustrating. I didn't want to do your show today because I knew I was going to lose my temper. Not at you, but just the situation. I'm so frustrated by this whole thing. This angers me. To be an American and see your government behave this way, it's such fundamentally un-American thing to do. Look, I know America's arrogant. I know we've been arrogant for a long time. Hell, guys, all the guys saying we're arrogant. Why not? We're the superpower. I mean, superpowers are arrogant. You're supposed to balance that arrogance with, you know, responsible thinking, an appreciation of humanity, to try and do the right thing. You know, a framework of law, imperfectly as it is implemented, at least, you know, it's there. This president's thrown that all out. We are in the wild, wild west, and it's not good. It's not a good look for us abroad. It's not a good look for us at home. The constitutional republic is dead. And so I'm very frustrated.
Actually, Lavrov commented on that, Scott. Lavrov talked about it. Here is what Lavrov said about international law.
Ago, President Trump said that he's not interested in international law. He has his own moral and his own understanding of what's right and wrong. Some elements of international life harken back of times long past, when leaders of certain countries are abducted in broad daylight and city blocks are exterminated with biblical cruelty, and children's hospitals are being targeted, where hundreds of children die in an instant. Nuclear power plants are being bombed, nuclear power plants that are defended, protected by international law and other facilities. And in this situation, nobody but us and our allies care about international law.
Yeah. He's literally pointing out that Donald Trump doesn't care about international law. He's just hitting. And this is the position of the official position of Russia when we hear it from Lavrov. You know, he's not a negotiator like Kirill Dmitriev. He's someone who makes these policies.
He's the man. Peskov came out and said it's the Wild Wild West. It's, it's the rule of the gun, and that Russia is going to have to adapt to that. Because when you have one rogue player, then everybody who complies with the law is at a disadvantage. And so this is why it's a very dangerous situation that we're in right now. And this is why I'm so frustrated. So again, I apologize early on for that breach. I was tempted to call you up before the show and say I'm just not in the mood. My brain's not wrapped around this enough, because there's just a lot of anger and frustration right now about everything. There's nothing good coming out of anything about my country right now. Nothing good. There's literally nothing good. It's all bad news. We're failing everywhere. There's no glimmer of hope. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. We're looking at a dark abyss, and so many Americans have just bought into this whole MAGA propaganda stuff. Mainstream media is totally sold out. There's no rational thought amongst them. And then, the independent media platforms. I mean, X has just become this horrific, platform that I don't know what they've done, but it just nonstop pro-Israeli, pro-Trump crap thrown out there, overwhelming. I mean, I'm grateful they haven't kicked me off, but it's not they say number one place for news in the world, but it's hard to even navigate to the news because you got to go through so much just crap and stuff, and so I was like, I promised Neem I'd be on 11 o'clock. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this, but I'm here. So it is what it is.
Scott, but by the way, when we look at the reality of what's going on right now, one of them is the Strait of Hormuz. Iran is going to keep the control of the Strait of Hormuz. They're not going to give it up. And the other, how do you see the way that could somehow bring some sort of sanity? You've mentioned the problems that these countries in the region are facing in terms of the security of the region. I'm talking about all these countries together. How do you see this new condition coming to play when it comes to the security of the region?
Well, first of all, Iran has to prevail, meaning that, but I think Iran's made it clear that it alone will control the on-off switch for the Strait of Hormuz, which means they're not going to tolerate, games being played by Gulf Arab states. So in the future, if Kuwait wants to play a game, Kuwaiti ships won't be allowed to go through. And what, in was it 1987 or so, we did the Iranians and the Iraqis were hitting each other's islands and oil production and all that stuff. And so the United States reflagged a whole bunch of ships, American flags, and we sailed them through the Strait of Hormuz, American cover. And Iran didn't do anything. I mean, they tried to blink. We sunk their navy, and they didn't have any other options. But Iran learned from that. They learned from that experience, and we didn't. We somehow still believe that just simply sailing a destroyer through the Strait of Hormuz would secure the Strait of Hormuz. That's all it took. And Iran basically created a integrated, straight interdiction capability that can't be defeated. Void of, literally, you'd have to put 250,000 troops on the ground. That's the minimum number necessary to do a landing at, say, Chabahar, and then sweep up the coast and sweep the Iranian coastline around the strait of all capabilities. But even then, that's problematic. It's rugged terrain. The Iranians aren't prone to surrender, and so I just, this is a big deal for Iran. It forever changes the landscape because it gives Iran the ability to dictate outcomes and to influence outcomes. Meaning, when there's negotiations now, people can't play the bluff Iran game. Do this or else we'll do that. The Iranians are like, we'll just hit the off switch. And we know what that means. And it gives Iran leverage against Europe and everybody else too. So if Iran can retain this, and I believe they will, I think that'll be one of the preconditions. And the Iranians will say, yeah, you just have to charge, you have to pay a price, a toll. If you pay the toll, you get passage. If you don't, you don't get passage. It's that simple. And it's not about the income generation. It's about the control. It's about the leverage that comes with the control. And I think this is a big deal. And this is going to be a very painful pill for the president. This is why you hear the president saying it went from we have to force the Strait of Hormuz to we don't care about the Strait of Hormuz to you have to force the Strait of Hormuz again, because he knows, first of all, the Strait of Hormuz for the United States, it's not crucial. We don't need it to survive. But the global economy does, and it impacts global energy prices. But the president can't be seen as being weak on this one. So, this is one of those key points for the Iranians that shows that they're not weak. That they look, if they were getting beat as bad as PKS said, they wouldn't be controlling the Strait of Hormuz. I mean, that's as simple as it gets. And last night, was it Wave 89? I mean, 100 big missiles fired. Pretty good.
No, you look at, Scott, most of Israelis are living in the bunkers. You look at Iran, nobody's living in the bunker. They know that they're getting bombed by the, fighter jets, but they're not living. This is the reality of two different countries.
The other thing, too, is, the longer this war goes on, the more difficult it is going to be for the U.S. and Israel to sustain this. The F-35 fighter wasn't built for this kind of sustained combat operations. At some point in time, they're going to have to, go in for maintenance. And then the other thing is we're using up all of the precision guided munitions, standoff munitions. To drop bombs in the future, you're going to have to come in with, laser guided or satellite guided bombs, but that means you have to get closer to the target. And what we're seeing is the Iranians put a whole bunch of stuff underground, including half their air force. And so, at some point in time, the nature of this war is going to change. They're going to continue to degrade E3s. People need to understand that you blow up an AWACS, AWACS is sort of what allows us to dominate the skies because it gives us total situational awareness, communications, boom, boom, boom. I think the Iranians have several tricks up their sleeve that they haven't used yet, up to and including anti-satellite weapons, meaning that the Iranians could, blind the United States. And when the time comes, if necessary, they will. I don't think Iran's done unveiling capabilities. What is the United States doing? We're mobilizing the third aircraft carrier. Again, if we were serious about this war, we would have 3 aircraft carriers on station when it began. Actually, we would have had 7 because that's sort of what we went into Desert Storm with. But we're not serious about this war. This is a made-up war, and we can't afford it. It's destroying our economy and destroying the Pentagon's budget. The ramifications of this, we are chewing up munitions to the point where we literally won't be able, if we ever wanted to defend Taiwan against China, we no longer have that capacity. It's over. If we pull out of Europe and the Ukrainians pull another one of their stupid Baltic state end around, drone, we pull out of NATO and the Ukrainians launch a drone attack, the Baltic states will be taken over by Russia. And there's nothing anybody can do to stop it. Because, I just remember all these, air power guys. We'll come in with air power. We'll hit the Russians like they've never been hit before. And I'm like, really? But now you hit the Iranians. They didn't have anything close to what the Russians have, and they're sort of winning. And now you're telling me that now this NATO Air Force that has no standoff weapons anymore? None, because it was really the Americans that delivered. The Germans have the Taurus. The Taurus won't be around after day 3 of Russian drone attacks against Germany. Okay, because there is no air defense in Germany, none. So drones will just be sitting there going anywhere they want, hitting whatever they want. That's all of Europe right now. Russians are building 1,000 drones a day at their factory in near Kazan. They use 200, 300, 400 a day against Ukraine. Where's the other drones going? Oh, stockpiled. So when the time comes, Russia will be able to flood the skies of Europe with these drones. There's no air defense against them whatsoever. And that'll be the end of Europe. Literally, Russia won't have to come in with They'll do the Oreshnik for shock and awe, but they don't need the Oreshnik. The drones will just come in and take care of everything. So the United States has crippled itself. Literally, we have crippled ourselves. We have, and our defense industry can't catch up. I mean, Donald Trump can have all the meetings he wants. Reality is reality. Who's funded the factories? Has Congress allocated that money? Okay, you build the factories. How quickly does it take for you to build that? I mean, you can't. I mean, you can do a lot of waivers, but at the end of the day, you still got to do like site surveys and environmental hazard tests, or else you open it up to long-term lawsuits. These tests sometimes take months, if not years, if you haven't pre-done them. You build the factory, you hire the people. In order to do that, you have to have contracts that justify the expenses. Has Congress, said we're going to buy this? Are we there? We're never going to recover from this. I mean, this is the sad truth. Actually, it might be the good truth. The fact is that it is the good truth. The good news is America will never recover from this militarily. And then we will have to downsize, which is why Trump getting out of the Middle East is a realistic possibility, because I think right now he's desperate to get out of the Middle East. He always wanted to get out of the Middle East, but he couldn't get out of the Middle East until the Israeli-Iranian thing was resolved. And now there's the potential for a resolution. Then we can get out of the Middle East. Because what Trump wants is Fortress America. He wants to come in and secure the Western Pacific or Western Hemisphere and then project ourselves into the Pacific. But the key aspect of the national security strategy, 2025 version, was to have military overmatch with the Chinese. Well, how can you have military overmatch if you can't defend yourself? How can you have military overmatch if all of your long-range standoff strike weapons have been used? You have nothing left. I mean, it's the other way now. We have guaranteed Chinese military supremacy in the Pacific. That's it. We're never going to recover from this. We're going to get out of NATO because we can't stay in NATO. We don't have enough military power to project ourselves into NATO anymore. So I think this Iran conflict will go down in history as, being one of the more transformational conflicts ever, because the Iranian victory, and I do believe Iran is going to win this war, will result in the United States not just withdrawing from the Middle East, but from Europe and the Pacific. Iran is defeating America globally. It's a big deal. It's a huge deal.
Scott, the other issue, we know that Netanyahu wanted this war for such a long time. He wanted to go against Iran. And he said, this is the head of octopus. And the main reason for that was he sees, the axis of resistance as an octopus, and Iran is the head of octopus. You have to destroy Iran, then the whole axis of resistance going to disappear from the scene. It didn't happen when it comes to Lebanon. Lebanon is fighting back fiercely. And
Didn't I tell you that? Didn't I tell you that? I said that Lebanon is in pause mode, that the loss of Nasrallah, they had to turn to the domestic issues in Lebanon, so Hezbollah took a back seat, but that Hezbollah had not been defeated, and Hezbollah had never withdrawn from the south. They did some political withdrawals, but they always had the ability to come back, and that their missile capabilities weren't fully retarded. And now, thanks to American stupidity, the Lebanese government has been exposed as nothing more than an agent of Israel. The Lebanese army is as impotent as the day is long. I mean, they incapable of defending Lebanon. The only force that's capable of defending Lebanon is Hezbollah, and they're kicking the crap out of Israel today. I mean, the Israeli ground are just people. This is one of those big awakening moments. You remember how in 1967, the supremacy of the Israeli ground forces played out against all Arab armies, with the exception of maybe the Jordanians who fought well, but there wasn't enough of them. Hezbollah is proving that an Arab army can defeat the Israelis in a stand-up fight. It's over for Israel. It's over. They've lost this war. They're mobilizing reservists. The reservists don't want to fight. And who are Israeli reservists? These aren't, these aren't boys who've been kept in a basement, with a weight set, and they throw raw meat down on occasion, and they're sitting there growling and ready to go. Come out of the basement, like Daenerys's dragons in the Game of Thrones when they came out and they burned the ships down. No, that's not it. These are a bunch of effeminate little soy boys who want to sit in air-conditioned offices and do tech development. That's the big Israeli thing. I'm a tech developer, and then they wear their overtly tight clothes and they prance around. And now they're being told they have to go do their military service. And they're like, well, no, I want to be in an air-conditioned office doing tech development. No, you got to go, and you got to go to southern Lebanon. You mean I got to go fight Hezbollah? Yeah, nobody wants to fight Hezbollah. There's not you can get their special operations forces may want to fight Hezbollah, but the mainstream Israeli army, they don't want to fight Hezbollah. They're scared to death. The 7th Armored Brigade lost the equivalent of 2 battalions fighting Hezbollah. This is their elite armored brigade, the 7th. They're the elite guys, and they're getting crushed by the Radwan forces. Lebanon, Hezbollah owns southern Lebanon. At some point in time, Lebanon, the Hezbollah has been preparing for a counterstrike into Galilee. Let's see what happens when that happens. How Israel responds when suddenly Kiryat Shimona is no longer Israeli, but they have the flag of Hezbollah rose up over it. Ansarallah now is entering. They can shut down the Bab. Oh shoot! I almost had a perfect track record. Bab el Mandeb.
Yeah.
Straight in a heartbeat. But more than that, they can defeat the Saudi army in a stand-up fight. I mean, we're at the state right now where Saudi military preparation is non-existent. And if the Yemeni wanted to, they can retake, they can, and I say retake because southern Saudi Arabia used to be Yemen, stolen by the Saudis. Yemen can go in there and take them, and that may be the result of this.
And it has all the oil.
Well, in the east too, the eastern provinces, you can get the Shia to rise up and be very disruptive. I think, again, I think Iran is in a position where it's not only going to compel the United States to leave the Middle East, abandon NATO, and withdraw from the Pacific, but we could see the end of the Al Saud family in Saudi Arabia, which would be beautiful, wonderful, perfect. We could see the end of the corrupt Emiratis. The end of the corrupt Kuwaitis, the end of the corrupt Bahrainis. Even Qatar may not survive this. Oman, I think they're a little bit better off. But this could be transformational for the region. The irony, I mean, we could just keep going down this way, that Kuwait becomes the 14th province of Iraq when this is done. Because if you get the corrupt Kuwaiti emirs to flee, the Iraqis, it isn't going to be Saddam Hussein that's going to be doing it. It's going to be the Shia of Iraq saying, come on home, baby. And there could be no better outcome from this war. I mean, a weakened Israel, a chastened Israel, an Israel that is no longer capable of projecting its brutal aggression the way it does, is the best result. Second to getting the United States out of the region. But the third result would be cleaning house in the Gulf Arab states, cleaning house. And it would be great because these corrupt families have brought nothing good to the region. It's fake. Whatever they do is fake. Dubai was fake, always artificial. Have you been to Dubai? I've been to Dubai. It's artificial. It's just a fake place, 100% fake. And I mean, it's fun. It was, but it was built on the backs of, oil money and then Western capital coming in to create this perception of a financial center. Artificial now. It's gone. They're not going to recover from this. And I think there would be no better outcome than to see these Gulf Arab states all collapse and the people of the region elect their leaders. No more nobility, no more kings, no more sheiks, no more emirs. It's time for presidents and prime ministers. That's how you transform the Middle East, because now this money, the money that's going to be taken out of the ground, you're no longer, how much money goes into the pockets of these Saudi princes so they can afford all this stuff, their lavish lifestyles. I mean, they're robbing the people blind. It's time for the oil money to go to a government of the people, by the people, for the people, and take care of them. And we need the United States to get the hell out of there. Imagine Iraq without American involvement. I mean, God, Iraq could still live up to so much potential. And the same thing with Iran. I mean, I can't even imagine what Iran would be like in a sanctions-free environment without worrying about American bases to their left and their right, living in peace with their neighbors. It would be a paradise. I mean, such a beautiful country to begin with. Could you imagine if Iran was able to take money and, the hypocrisy of Marco Rubio. If the Iranians weren't so busy building missiles, they could invest in their people. Hey, Marco, come to Albany and look at the frickin' potholes, pal. Come take a look at the infrastructure. The bridges are getting ready to collapse. Maybe if we didn't spend trillions of dollars buying weapons to carry out illegal wars of aggression, we'd have a better home too, Marco. The hypocrisy of the American leadership. I mean, the amount of money we're spending waging war, $200 billion is what we're asking to pay for this conflict. Crazy.